everybody. We are here. It is Thursday morning on the East Coast. Welcome, everybody here in the United States and to our friends abroad. Thank you so much for joining our most recent episode of Pax Americana. There is so much, Olga, to discuss this week that I don't even know where to begin, but I guess we'll begin with the most obvious thing, which is that there was an event in Eastern Europe, or in the Baltics, I should say, that our president was not familiar with, that really bodes not so well for not just our country, but for our NATO allies, of which Lithuania is one, and for all our allies in the Five Eyes around the world who are not part of NATO as well. So why don't you kick it off and tell everybody what happened and our commander in chief's reaction to what happened, which I think is really startling.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought we were starting with Witkoff. That's why I was laughing.
Oh
This
yeah, well, we can
actually
talk
is
about him
not a
too.
laughing matter. So, it hasn't made U.S. press as much because obviously of, Signalgate. But a few days ago, four American soldiers went missing on the in Lithuania during training exercises near the Belarusian border. Yesterday, the NATO chief came out and, suggested that they had been killed. Then he walked back the comments. So far, no evidence they have been killed. They did find their vehicle submerged in water. And last night, um, Trump was asked about it if he had been briefed about this, and he said no, he hasn't. The fact that an American president doesn't know that four American soldiers are missing in that location. I mean, this is Belarus. This is, Russia's basically annexed territory. If God forbid, Russia or Belarus are involved, I mean, first of all, a commander in chief is supposed to know any incident, wherever it is. But this in particular, the fact that he didn't know, and this comes off of, everything else, this is incompetence, it's dangerous, and clearly, it is breaking the trust of all our allies because they see that America is being run in the most incompetent and dangerous way. So hopefully we'll find them. Let's hope everything is okay. But this is something that he should have, and I'm sure he was briefed, unless, Hegseth was too drunk to, deal with this. But this is something that he should have been briefed on and on top of, because these are four American lives overseas who are, fighting for this country. So,
Well, let's break that down for a second because this is why the Hegseth Signalgate incident is it's dangerous for a number of reasons, but this really brings into stark relief another reason why it's so dangerous. And the reason for that is because anybody that would have briefed the president, including Tulsi Gabbard, who is oversees the agency that delivers the president's daily brief to the president of the United States, as the director of national intelligence, she's in charge of that. She was on this Signal chat that we'll get to in a moment. Pete Hegseth, of course, was on this Signal chat, which we'll get to in a moment, as the Secretary of Defense. And Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, was on this chat. John Ratcliffe, as the head of the CIA, director of the CIA, was on this chat. And of course, Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, was on this chat. If, God forbid, this was not just four American soldiers gone missing because their Jeep ran into water or something happened that was an act of nature. But if in fact this was something much more nefarious, and in this neighborhood that we're talking about, Lithuania, which borders Poland, which borders Belarus, um, and of course is, according to Vladimir Putin, should be in the Russian sphere of influence. It's a former Soviet republic. Certainly, Belarus is a former Soviet republic, and basically is a existing Russian republic right now, though it's nominally
yes.
independent. Um, you know, the problem is that the people who would be focused on this and would be briefed on this at the very tippy top are their interest is diverted right now with something else, which is preserving their own careers and saving their own lives. And the fact that they were part of what is the biggest security breach at the highest levels of government that I can think of. I don't know if you can recall a time when this happened like this before. I can't. So their eye's not on the ball right now. And God forbid that these people actually were ambushed. And I truly hope that's not the case, but they were ambushed by either the Russians or the Belarusians or just elements in Lithuania who are working for any of those nations. That's a, that's a problem. And I guess the question is, if that's the case, what do we expect Donald Trump to do about it? My answer is nothing. I don't know what you
Now,
think.
he'll cover it up.
Yeah.
That's what he'll do. And then play stupid and say, no, I have no clue what happened. Who, what, where, which is basically what he does with everything. No,
Yeah.
it's extremely troubling. I mean, this really, I mean, I've been keeping an eye on the story. And, the fact that you have NATO and European allies discussing this, giving updates. We have yet to hear an update from an American official. Yeah, I mean, as far as we're concerned, no one knows anything. And no one has even mentioned this is happening. I mean, this is insane. These are for American troops.
And this is our commander in chief. And I know that we always kind of think, well, Trump is Trump, and we always give Trump, well, I certainly don't. I know you don't either, but the American media tends to give Trump a little bit more leeway because they keep saying, well, it's Trump being Trump. If you are a young American who wants to join the military to serve your country, you hope and expect, actually, you don't hope, you expect, or you should demand
Mhm.
that the commander in chief of the armed forces is going to have your back, that the secretary of defense is going to have your back. And the truth of the matter is that there are four missing Americans right now. And were it not for the fact that this made it into the media elsewhere, I don't know that the American people would know about this, but what does this say about an 18-year-old who wants to join the military? Or what
Yeah,
does it say about younger kids who join the ROTC in their high school or certainly, go through ROTC training in college or just enlist?
yeah,
I think we've all known people who've done that. I've had very close friends who've served in the military. I've had a very, very close friend who was a JAG officer for a long time, and I cannot imagine what he would have said to this when he was still serving the JAG Corps. I can't imagine what Lindsey Graham, who served in the JAG Corps for a long time, would have said about this pre Donald Trump. And Roger
absolutely.
Wicker and all of these other people, and Joni Ernst, and all of these people who made their military background a really big political hallmark of their careers and ran on it to death. And yet the silence is deafening. Four Americans missing.
And we're
Four
probably the
Americans.
only one discussing this in detail because right now our legacy media is wrapped up, obviously with Signalgate, and there's mention, obviously, small articles mentioned in Reuters, AP, but I mean, this is something that American leaders should have addressed and said we shouldn't be hearing this from the Secretary General of NATO or from
Yeah.
Lithuanian officials. This is something, these are Americans. So this goes back to the whole dangerous incompetence of what is happening and how this translates into actual real-time situations on the ground.
And of course, when the American public decided that they wanted somebody to quote unquote break the system, what they probably should have thought about is that there is a reason why expertise matters. There is a reason why you don't put talk show hosts in as commander in chief or as the secretary of defense. Now, I knew Pete Hegseth very well when I worked at Fox News. He and I did many shows together. He is exactly what he is. He is exactly what he is. I've gone drinking with Pete Hegseth. He is exactly what he is.
Oh,
And I can tell you that that is not who you want in charge when four American servicemen are missing in a part of the world that doesn't look that particularly dangerous because it's Europe and it's in part of NATO and civilized. But if he consulted a map, he would have seen. If Donald Trump consulted a map, he would have seen what Lithuania borders and
exactly.
why it is so crucial and why it was crucial to the Soviets when they annexed it at the start of World War II, and why it was so crucial throughout history as that little space between Poland to the west and the Russian Empire to the east, that was always so crucial to the geopolitical sensibilities of anybody that ruled first the Russian Empire, then the Soviet Union, and now Russia. And now we are not just poisoning Russians on European soil anymore. We are now going potentially, I don't want to go too far, potentially harming or putting at risk American servicemen and women, which goes back to that explosion in the North Sea a few weeks ago, which we you talked about at length also, which also involved an American ship that was transporting fuel for our armed forces, also full of American service people. Nobody's talking about that much anymore. I actually checked yesterday to see if there were any updates, and the updates are just about, who's going to be tried and kind of in the British media, but nothing more about what this investigation will show. All of this is potentially a big coincidence, but I think we both agree that there is probably no such thing as a coincidence when it comes to Vladimir Putin. And that brings me to our friend Steve Witkoff, who was meeting with Vladimir Putin. You wrote, I thought, again, people don't follow Olga on Substack. I don't know what you're doing because that's the first thing you should be doing, but you wrote something on Substack
Likewise.
yeah, on social media that was, I thought, incredibly important, which is that you tracked down what Steve Witkoff was up to in the hours that he was on this text chain, receiving not just the name of a covert CIA agent, which of course should be kept quite proprietary, but also uh, war plans, or as Pete Hegseth said, attack plans uh, in Yemen, on the Red Sea. So tell us about Steve Witkoff.
So, when this Signalgate story broke, I know that Witkoff had just left Russia because he can't stop praising Putin. I mean, every chance he gets, he's a great friend.
Yeah.
He's so amazing. He, commissioned a portrait of Trump that I delivered, probably with bugs and some kind of encrypted messages. Um, he went to pray for Trump when, there was an assassination attempt. He's trustworthy and all the other garbage that he came, back with. Nonetheless, to spout this Russian BS on Tucker Carlson, another propagandist. Um, so I know he was just there. So I went to check, based off of the timeline, thanks to Jeffrey Goldberg, that, he he really did his job very well by documenting by minute of everything that happened. And sure enough, I found out that Witkoff was in Moscow when this was happening. I broke the scoop. I want to give a big thank you to Adam Kinzinger because he actually credited me
Yeah.
for breaking the scoop. Usually that never happens. Um, and that's it. And so he was in Moscow when he was added to this chat. So now you have, first of all, I mean, this whole thing, I can't stop laughing because of how insane it is. You either pound your head in a wall or you laugh about it. You have every top official of the US government sitting on Signal planning a military operation, timing, dates, targets, weapon packages that are going to be used. And then you have several of them overseas. And with this, Witkoff was in Moscow. I mean, if you're in Russia, first of all, no one should go to Russia, please. You'll be taken hostage. But if you are in Russia, the chances of your electronics being compromised are 100%. I mean, this is what they do. This is what they did during the Soviet Union. And now with technology, they don't even have to have your device. They could walk by and clone your phone. So he was added to this Houthi chat that said basically, that something is happening within 72 hours, while he was in Moscow. And on top of that, I mean, for people who don't know, Russia supplies the Houthis with weapons. I mean, the Houthis are Russia's besties, as is Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran. Um, and from there, he was there for about 2 hours after he was before when he was added to the chat. From there, he flew to Baku for meetings.
So Azerbaijan,
Um,
right?
Yeah. And now, at this point, the CIA agent is already disclosed. The plans are already being put into place, and he is sitting in Baku for meetings. So now you have him from Moscow to Baku. Baku is overrun with IRGC agents. I mean, it's known. So you have Russian agents in Baku, you have Iranian agents in Baku, and here they're planning an attack with his phone, um, you know, with him. And that's it. And that goes back to how dangerous this is, because not only could these plans have been revealed to Russia, it could have been directly revealed to Iran. I
Well,
mean,
it
this
actually
is
gets, yeah, it actually gets crazier because in an attempt to defend himself, Steve Witkoff
yeah.
puts out a statement yesterday, which I also laughed because if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. Where Steve Witkoff said, "How stupid do you think I am? All this signal chat was on my personal phone, and
Yes,
I
yes,
would never take
yes.
my personal phone to Moscow. I took a government issued secure
Uh-huh.
phone and left my personal phone back here in the United States." So, a couple of things. One is, are you, excuse my language, are you fucking kidding me that you actually have a signal device on your personal phone that is transmitting the name of a covert CIA agent and war plan slash Pete Hexeth attack plans, just in case Pete Hexeth is listening and gets bent out of shape.
Yeah.
Attack plans um, on your personal device, like the same kind of personal device that you and I are transmitting from right now. That's one. And two, well, I guess now the Russians know what to target. Do they not think that the Russians have access to people in this country that can mirror their personal devices here? Like the easiest thing to track? I mean, the Israelis have technology that they don't even have to walk by you. They could be sitting in Tel Aviv and access every aspect of your phone. That
Yep.
came out a few years ago as some great Israeli technology. Do we not think that that technology has been shared or has been created by other countries? And so now Steve Woodcock has told us exactly which phone of his needs to be targeted and where it is. And of course, this is not the first time that they've used Signal. And of course, this is not something that is probably new information to the Russians. Just because it's new information to Jeffrey Goldberg and new information to all of us doesn't mean that this is something that the Russians and other hostile foreign powers and their intelligence services have not been aware of for quite a while. They would not be worth the salt, their salt, if they had not been aware that these people use Signal to for personal stuff on their personal for governmental stuff on their personal phones. So, irrespective of which phone Wyckoff took with him to the Kremlin, now we know that these people have personal devices, and now we know that on those personal devices is information that, of course, is not personal, but is proprietary governmental information that really puts the lives of American servicemen and women, the lives of American intelligence officers at risk. And this is Steve Witkoff's defense. Well, I didn't take that photo with me. That was my personal phone. I left it back in the United States. Where? In your apartment, Steve Witkoff? Oh, okay. Thanks. I mean, if you're sitting there, if you're sitting there in any intelligence service, whether in Moscow or in Tehran or Riyadh or even in London, in Vauxhall in London or in Paris. I mean, our allies and our adversaries in Beijing, you must be just not laughing. You must be like, this is too easy. Like, this is not what we went to spy school for.
I think they're laughing too.
Yeah, they must be.
They're
'Cause
probably like,
they
what?
must be because this is so easy. But I go back to the fact that I go back to the fact that there are real people who joined
Yes.
either the clandestine services in this country or the military in this country because they wanted to serve their country who legitimately should be terrified right now. Like that's not funny for them. And yet there's no accountability and there's no like lessons learned, there's nothing. There's almost a doubling down like yeah, this is how we've done it and we're going to continue to do it this way in the future. Like that's just how it is.
The whole thing is so, like I said, I keep laughing because of how insane. I mean, if someone, told me that you have military operations being planned on an app, I mean, and Signal, yes, it's secure for a lot of people. I personally use Signal, but there are two things. One, I know from my Ukrainian sources last year, and then it managed to get into media here from Ukrainians issuing a warning that signal has been penetrated by Russians in Ukraine, because they were using it also for, to on the front line, and signal, was penetrated. So clearly the Russians have a signal. I mean, have a way to access signal. And two, I mean, this is just, it's insane. The whole thing is insane, and I just want to pull back again, and we already discussed this, when with the last scandal, whatever, there's so many of them.
Yeah.
Um, but I want to pull back to what this translates to. So you have this happening here in the United States. You have the top officials discussing very specific, detailed plans of an attack, within 72 hours on Signal. And actually two things I want to touch on. Um, and we're not in a bubble. I mean, if we were in a bubble and the whole world doesn't see this, it's one thing. But now you have every single ally. If they weren't already questioning, with Trump's cozying up and fealty to Putin, if they weren't already, suspicious, how much do we share intelligence with the US? What can we do? Now, this set off, I mean, alarm bells with all our allies, Israel, Europeans, everyone, because now they came to the realization not only do they have a problem that this, regime is, cozying up to Putin and doing everything and basically carrying Russia's foreign policy and strategic goals out? But at the same time, you have the top officials sitting on Signal discussing sensitive information with sensitive sources, with military weapons, tactics, and whatnot. So now, again, it goes back to the point America is going to be left in the blind because Five Eyes, we could forget Five
Oh yeah.
Eyes. It's Four Eyes, Five Eyes is gone. All our allies across the world, informants, who is going to compromise? And informants usually are in the most sensitive, dangerous locations. Who is going to cooperate with American intelligence services, knowing that their name could be shared on a Signal chat or a WhatsApp or some other chat that is not authorized by the government? And this goes back to just this all happened and very publicly, and as the media is chewing it over, and from every single angle possible, our allies are watching. Our allies took note of it. They are sitting there dumbfounded like we are. Like, really? Like, you're using Signal for this? I mean, this is 101. There's a reason there are skiffs. There's a reason, American agencies built secure locations and secure devices to communicate from. And now we have this situation. I mean, no one is going to share intelligence with us. And that leaves us open to an attack. And our men and women who are serving overseas, the American people in the United States, this is leaving us open to attacks. And no one will provide us with information because they're not going to want to compromise their sources, methods of how they obtain the information.
Yeah, I mean, there are so and it's interesting how the legacy media keeps kind of trying to hammer the same point home, which is you released war plans, and no, it was attack plans, no, it was war plans. But they're not looking at, as you point out, the much bigger picture, which is this is not just about this one operation, and it's not just about this one incident. It is about, as you point out, the fact that if I were, let's say that I were some general or somebody close to Putin in the Kremlin right now, and I was a spy for the United States, and we have people like that because of course we have people like that. I would immediately ask to be extracted immediately, along with
And
my
by
family, if I
who?
could. And by whom? The problem is, like, if I were handled by the CIA for all these years, and now that I've got John Ratcliffe who's putting stuff on Signal, who do I go to and ask to be extracted? Do I trust those people that they will either
Nope.
inadvertently or purposefully not disclose my name? And that's, human intelligence is how we get the vast majority of the information that is designed to keep us safe. Us sitting here in New York City, as you and I are, safe. Us
Yep.
across the United States, safe. Our allies who might be listening, all of you, safe. That is how we do it. We share intelligence with each other. And when you have somebody preparing the president's daily brief who was on the Signal chat, when you have somebody who's in charge of our spy network on the Signal chat, when you have the person charged and tasked with keeping this country safe militarily on this chat, to whom do you go? And that's the problem. And I will go a step further, something that that the legacy media just absolutely failed to pick up. CBS, to its credit, got a memorandum, a bulletin that was an unclassified bulletin that the National Security Agency, which is overseen by the Pentagon, it's an arm of the Pentagon, put out back in February. I want to say like February 12th. Basically saying point blank, do not use Signal. You are prohibited from using Signal. And explained why. And at the very bottom of this memorandum, this bulletin, it said you can use Signal for, like, basically, I don't know, like, hey, Olga, you want to meet up for lunch today? That you could use Signal for that, but not for anything, even stuff that's not classified, you could not use Signal for. And what happens within days of that? The person who oversees the National Security Agency, by virtue of being the director of the Pentagon, the Secretary of Defense, uses Signal and puts information on Signal that, whether it's classified or not, he's claiming it's not classified. That's a joke. Of course, it's classified. But regardless whether it is or it isn't,
Yeah. Doesn't matter.
his own guidance said you cannot use Signal. So uh, that for some reason hasn't gotten a lot of traction. And I don't know why. I don't know. The media is just, they jump on something and then they just kind of try to harp on it and try to harp on it. They think they're
Yeah.
scoring points, but there's so much more to the story. And that's why,
So many angles.
so many different angles. I mean, where is the reporter who is going to interview the head of the intelligence services or people close to the heads of the intelligence services in the Four Eyes, that is not us, the other four nations in Canada,
Mhm.
Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, and saying to them, hey, are you guys, like, tell us off the record, are you guys going to continue to share information in the United States? Where's that story?
Yep.
Where are they going to the intelligence services of the Israelis and saying, okay, I know that Netanyahu is trying to suck up to Trump for all the right reasons, but seriously, like, are you guys really going to share information
Yeah.
with your
Mossad is
counterparts?
a separate entity from
Yeah,
Netanyahu.
are
This
you
is
guys
their neighborhood.
yeah, like, are you guys going to
Mm,
share are you
nope.
guys going to share with stuff with Langley now that John Ratcliffe is on these texts? And the answer, probably, if they were being honest, is hell no. Of course we're not going to. And yet those stories aren't being written, and they have the resources to do that. I mean, it's pretty astounding to me that the larger picture of all of this is just not being discussed
No.
publicly at the levels that it should be, because, you know 9/11, which both you and I are old enough to remember, was a massive intelligence failure, but it really wasn't. It was actually a failure of imagination, but there was intelligence that basically said bin Laden determined to attack the United States or whatever. I'm
Using
paraphrasing.
planes. The
Using planes,
Jordanians
right?
gave us the
Yep.
information.
Like, would you give that kind of information, which we didn't act on, but had? I'm not so sure that we'd be even getting that kind of heads up about it.
Oh, nope.
And that led to 3,000 people dying on the spot and to hundreds of thousands of people dying 20 years later, within the next 20 years, I should say. Um, so i- it's they are so careless. I keep thinking about that Great Gatsby line about, I don't know if you ever read The Great Gatsby, but for those people who did, you'll know the line about Daisy and Tom Buchanan, but they were careless with other people's things. They broke things and they moved on, their careless world and let other people pick up the pieces. I'm totally butchering this quote, but it's along those lines. And it's a really famous quote from The Great Gatsby. It's probably the most famous quote from The Great Gatsby. And I keep thinking about that applying to this cohort. They are careless, they break things, and then they leave other people to clean it up. And when other people can't clean it up because they've gotten rid of the people that could clean it up and staff them with loyalists and apparatchiks, then they
Hmm.
blame the other side for not being able to clean it up.
No, the whole thing, like I said, it's funny, it's disturbing. The only reason I'm laughing is because if not, you just lose your mind.
Yeah.
And just I'll tell you, I mean, Russian mafia is more careful to this. You're not gonna have mafia discussions. Okay, we're delivering, this amount of cocaine at this location at this time, and then from there you're gonna drive to here on this highway. Like, I mean, criminal elements are smarter than this, and we're supposed to trust these people to track terrorists and criminal elements when they are doing this. And, it's the whole thing is insane. And I just want to touch on, and we'll put it into the show notes. Going back to this, two things happened yesterday. Der Spiegel, the German outlet, they carried out basically OSINT, open research, and were able to track various accounts leading back to the Signal chat tied to the top officials and mapping out their networks. So Susie Wiles and Tulsi Gabbard and Hexeth, and this is using all open source intelligence and different applications, different um, um, websites and whatnot. They were able to get passwords of these people. They were able to basically map out their network. So, again, these people are so reckless that if journalists in Germany were able to piece out and map out the whole network of this, upper, how you call it, um, top
Echelon.
tier
Yeah.
officials of this regime. I mean, of course, security services will. And this, again, all leaves open a whole slew of other problems of being compromised, of being, tracked and whatnot. And then Wired had an excellent article where they were able to connect, I believe, a Venmo account to Pete a headset. Again, able to decipher passwords and emails used and phone numbers and everything. What in the hell are these people doing? They're
It was John.
leaving
I think it was
themselves.
John. Yeah, I think it was John Ratcliffe that they tried to connect it to,
Oh,
but not
John Ratcliffe.
but same thing, right? That all the
Yeah,
I think that my Venmo account is like you can't, you don't know who my Venmo friends are because when I first got Venmo, I was like, yeah, I don't think I want the whole world knowing who I pay and like if I gave Olga $20 because we split lunch one day, like that's just TMI. These
yeah,
are the people in charge of our intelligence. These are the people in charge of our national security, and they can't handle a Venmo account. You
yep.
have Susie Wiles sitting in the White House as the chief of staff who has access to every single thing about literally, she's the person that is the second most. Everybody keeps talking about how Elon Musk is the second most powerful person in the country. It's actually Susie Wiles. She's kind of running the White House because Trump is busy tweeting whatever he's doing, truthing. And yet these people can't even be bothered to put their Venmo accounts set to private. This is like I know we're sitting here, we're kind of laughing about it, and we're like, oh God, look at these morons. But the truth of the matter is, this is
This is
for real.
dangerous.
This is dangerous. This is putting us at risk. It is putting everybody at risk, not just the United States. It is putting our allies at risk. And if anybody here is joining from Ukraine or joining from any of our people who used to be our allies for the last 80 years, I'm not so sure you guys would consider us allies now. I still hope you do because I hope you understand the American people are still very much with you, even though our leaders are not. But it's putting all of us at risk because if we can't share with the British information that we have because they're not sharing with us or because our information is compromised and they can't rely on it, that puts Britain at risk. That puts the European continent at risk. That puts the Middle Eastern allies that we have, including the Israelis, at risk. We still are the indispensable nation. That's the word that I keep coming back to. We are the only nation in the world that is indispensable by virtue of our economy, by virtue of our military, by virtue of our education system, higher education system, I should say. And every single part of that is being dismantled, purposely being dismantled. That makes the entire world less safe at a time when nuclear proliferation is going to go up because everybody's going to learn their lesson from Ukraine and say, well, wait a second. If the Ukrainians gave up their nukes and the United States guaranteed their territorial sovereignty when they did and is no longer abiding by that agreement, well, we can't rely on the United States, so we might as well get nukes too. That's the only way to deter. I mean, you have
That's what's
Pakistan.
happening.
Yeah, I mean, you have Pakistan, which is a failed state, and yet you don't really have a mass invasion of Pakistan by India because they're both nuclear armed and they
Yeah.
understand the ramifications. That's the lesson that the Saudis are going to learn very quickly, the Egyptians are going to learn very quickly, and the Taiwanese are going to learn very quickly. The South Koreans are going to learn very quickly. The Germans are going to learn very quickly. The Poles are going to, I mean, I can go on. All of these countries.
Poland already said it. Poland said that right now they're going to live under a UK and French nuclear umbrella, but they're exploring ways to, build their own nuclear program because, and they specifically said, they cannot trust the United States to provide that nuclear umbrella anymore. So
And you have,
they
yeah,
already,
and you have these. Somebody in the chat said it's pure cosplay with them. That's a great way to describe it, Joe. And it is cosplay because they are cosplaying grown-ups.
yeah.
I mean, uh, let me tell you something. Pete Hegseth, I just like I know the guy. I know the guy. Like there is not there's no secret to Pete Hegseth. Like what you see is what you get. He really I take it from me. What you see is what you get. Donald Trump, what else do you need to know? Tulsi Gabbard, which I was cracking up about because Tulsi Gabbard, with this whole like, well, I don't, I served in the military, so I don't want to go to war, and I don't want to play, I don't want to do anything that's going to put this country in more danger and deploy our troops in ways that they shouldn't be deployed. Sh JT Vance spoke up and said maybe we shouldn't attack the Houthis. She had nothing to say. She was like, let's go for it. So all of that was complete nonsense too. All of these people are
Can I
pretending
actually
they
add
don't.
something on her that maybe
Yeah.
people missed yesterday at the hearing? As she sat there and lied under oath, saying that there were no details at all.
Yep.
She defended on her private account, retweeting
Yep.
Russia Today, an intelligence operation, because Russia Today and frankly TASS and all of these, they're arms of Russian intelligence services, particularly Russia Today and Sputnik for abroad, operations abroad. She defended. I mean, what reality are we living in where our director of national intelligence is saying, what's wrong with me retweeting Russia Today? I did it on my personal account. I'm sure
Well,
she,
that's it's it's
she,
it's it's like Wyckoff, right? And it's not just her. Like again, let's connect all the dots. You've got Wyckoff coming back from Russia, and even before he went to Russia, effectively mirroring Putin's talking points. You've got Tulsi Gabbard, who for the last X number of years has basically, I mean,
a decade.
yeah, a decade. I mean, if she spoke Russian, it would literally be verbatim. But since she doesn't speak Russian, as far as I
Maybe
know,
she does actually.
maybe she does. Yeah, but it's not verbatim. It's translation. Verbatim translation basically, so transliteration almost.
Yeah,
Um, and you've got Tucker, who's kind of the influencer of all these people. She used to sit on a show, and Tucker, of course, has been parroting Russian talking points for going back to
she
the '90s or
works for them
whatever. Yeah,
practically.
and so uh, at a time when 70% of this country, I think that's the number, thinks Vladimir Putin is awful and disapproves of him, why is it that Donald Trump is stacking every single high profile national security role, except for Marco Rubio, with, I'm sorry, I should say, with the exception of Marco Rubio until he joined this administration, but everybody who joined this administration from the jump was a Kremlin talking point acolyte. And then Rubio,
Hmm.
once he joined, threw out everything he believed in and decided he was going to join the rest of them and basically do the same. So that also begs the question. Everybody keeps saying, is he a Russian asset? Is he not a Russian asset? Of course, he's a Russian asset. It's just a question of whether he's a witting Russian asset or an unwitting Russian asset. But does it matter? I mean,
No.
like you think about whether the Manchurian Candidate, or you think about all these stupid movies that we used to have back in the day, where like somebody's programmed and you push a button and they don't know what they're doing and they start walking like a robot. Like, does it matter whether they're programmed or not? I'm not suggesting he is. I'm not suggesting it's a stupid movie like that. I'm suggesting that the motivations don't much matter to me.
It's the actions,
It's the
real
actions.
actions.
Yeah, like it's it's kind of like, oh, if your boyfriend or your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, or whoever cheats on you, like, oh, I cheated on you, but I didn't really mean it, and it's because, like, who cares? You did it, and it's the same thing here,
Exactly.
right? It's the same thing
Yep.
here. It doesn't matter why you're doing it; it's done, and it's continuing to be done. And at a time when Steve Witkoff is jetting off to the Kremlin, and according to the Kremlin, spending until 1:30 in the morning meeting with Vladimir Putin. Now, okay, about what? And then going straight back to Vnukovo Airport, leaving at two wheels up at 2 a.m., going to Baku, which, as you pointed out, is basically crawling with with Kremlin intelligence and also, as you said, Ukrainian intelligence based on where they are located in the
Iranian. Yep.
Caucasus, or Iranian, excuse me, not Iranian, sorry, not Ukrainian. Maybe Ukrainian too, hopefully. But and John Ratcliffe, when asked, said he did not know that Steve Witkoff was in the Kremlin when all of that was being sent. Yes.
Imagine our CIA director.
Our CIA director does not know who is meeting with Vladimir Putin from the administration that he serves, in which he serves.
And that he was added to the chat when he was in Moscow. I mean, are we the whole thing? And can I add to another security risk that is going under the radar? So Elon Musk apparently wired the White House with Starlink. You have Elon Musk, and there's also, I'll add it into the show notes, a great investigation of how China is moving money into his Starlink through the Cayman
Yep.
Islands. You had another investigation a few weeks ago of how China's moving money into all his companies. He is one of the biggest clients of China.
Of
China
course.
is apparently, according to Republicans, now I'm sure they're going to whitewash and China's going to be perfect and no longer communist, and they're going to be an amazing partner and ally because we're moving away from our real allies. But now you have a man who has control of all our data. I'm sure top classified information at this point. Um, you have one of his top operatives, Big Balls, who same thing has access to all our data. And there was an investigation that he worked just a few years ago with a cyber criminal that were hacking the FBI. And
While still in high
he's
school, while still in high school, I believe, right? Because
oh yes,
Big Balls
yes,
was like 19.
yes,
Yeah.
and he has access to all our data everywhere, Treasury, Social Security, IRS, everywhere. So you have Musk, who has access to every single system in the United States government, our personal data, classified data, agency data, I'm sure informants by now, everything. And this man, on top of it, wires Starlink, and I mean the White House with Starlink, and he is owned by China. And not to mention his, close relationship with Putin, where he secretly, had communications, many communications
Not
over
so
the past.
secretly, not so secret.
Yeah,
His
exactly.
own lawyers admitted it. I mean,
Yeah. So what is happening? I mean, so our White House, I mean, besides Trump himself, but now we don't even have to worry just only about Russia because China could probably be sitting there on a line listening to every single conversation happening inside the White House
I mean, this
with
never got
access to
this,
all our
yeah,
data.
this didn't get much play either in the legacy media, God knows why. But there is a factory in Shanghai that Elon Musk opened. This is not the part that didn't get a lot of play, but that factory, by the way, is the largest factory outside the United States, the most lucrative factory outside the United States. It produces a third of all Tesla cars sold. Um, and without it, Musk would be completely screwed because, as you know,
Hmm.
Tesla stock is going down precipitously in this country. Very few people are buying Teslas compared to what was happening a few years ago. So that's one. But two, he just opened up a lithium ion, I believe, factory right next door to produce these batteries for the Teslas that he's going to build. And both of those factories were shepherded through within a matter of months, not years, not decades, months, built immediately with the help of, and I'm going to butcher his name, I think it's Li Kong, but I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not even sure if I'm getting the name right, but it's the number two person they took after Xi Jinping. It's the second most powerful person in China who took a personal interest with Musk in creating these two adjacent factories to each other in Shanghai. Um, who do you think Elon Musk owes? And why do you think patriotism is going to be more important to him than his financial considerations at a time when he is hemorrhaging money?
And where's
Hemorrhaging.
Tom Cotton? Tom Cotton, the biggest China hawk.
Tom
Where is
Cotton,
he?
Tom Cotton is nowhere to be found. Lindsey Graham is nowhere to be found. None of these people are anywhere to be found. And I, the part that kind of kills me about all of this is all going to come to a head.
Yes.
It makes me, it makes me sick to say it, but we're going to have an incident. And I remember I don't know if I ever discussed this here, but in, I was working in the United States Senate on 9/11. And by whatever accident of fate, the senator for whom I was working told everybody else to go home, but asked me to stay with him. And I was evacuated to the Capitol Police, which is where the Senate and the House were gathering with him. And there were very few staff members around. And basically, you got to see these people in their own state of nature without any staff and without any media and what they were like privately at a moment of crisis. And I will tell you this, a lot of them comported themselves very well. Some of them comported themselves very poorly. But the part that was really interesting to me in hindsight, and this is now 20, almost 25 years ago, 24 years ago almost, is that there was no partisanship. There was absolutely no partisanship happening. Nobody was blaming Bush for intelligence failures. Nobody was blaming the Republicans weren't blaming the Democrats. The Democrats weren't blaming the Republicans. Everybody was just horrified. They all got together. They nominated kind of who was going to be the spokesperson for the Senate. They all agreed that it was going to be Joe Lieberman, for whatever reason. I guess he had the moral authority back then to be that guy. And it was just it was a, um, I'm not suggesting that if people knew what was going on that day, they wouldn't be horrified about how some of them conducted themselves, but I will tell you that there was no partisanship. I think about that day all the time because if God forbid something were to happen right now, the president of the United States, after he was allowed to leave whatever secure bunker he was in, would stand on the steps of wherever he could stand on the steps of or tweet out that this is the fault of the Democratic Party
Yep.
and
And divide the country.
divide the country. And all of this is coming to a head. And it is coming to a head because, and purely because, we have incompetent ideologues in charge of our national security.
Yep.
And this stuff doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It doesn't just happen to four service people in Lithuania, as tragic as that may be if they don't return. It doesn't just happen to some covert CIA agent whose name just got exposed on a signal chat. It doesn't just happen to troops in the Red Sea whose lives were put at risk because Pete Hegseth didn't think about maybe I shouldn't put our war plans slash attack plans on a signal group chat. It's coming here. It's coming here.
Yep.
And eh, eh, like
And this is at a point that Trump is antagonizing the Middle East. He's throwing, fuel on the fire. saying how he's going to cleanse out Palestine, how he's going to take 2 million people and and displace them God knows where. I mean, every country is saying, "Are you nuts?"
Mm.
But this is coming at a point where he's antagonizing. And 9/11, and frankly, every terrorist attack has always, the core issue has always been Palestine and the US support for Israel. Trump is throwing fuel on the fire. He is dismantling our counterterrorism. They're getting fired. They're being redirected to deal with, you know,
Jeffrey
uh,
Epstein.
yeah, Jeffrey Epstein
Yeah.
and Tesla and what is it called? The cartels. So they are being redirected from actual like monitoring terrorism. He's dismantling the law enforcement. And again, the FBI's right now main objective is not only, the quote unquote gangs, but Tesla. I mean, this is they opened the Tesla task force. Pam Bondi threatened people not to, like there'll be consequences if they protest. What? Like people can protest if they want.
Yeah, and they should
Not
do.
on top of labeling the domestic terrorism, which frankly is a local law enforcement issue, if you ask me. But I mean, this is at a time we're losing trust in our allies, and frankly, any country is not going to share intelligence. We're dismantling our own, agencies, and at the same time, we're pissing everyone in the world off.
Yeah. Like if people don't, and again, where's the legacy media putting all of this together? Because this is exactly the kind of story that should be on the front page of the New York Times. What are the consequences of all of these actions? Every single one.
Yep, a
And the
hundred
truth
percent.
and the truth of the matter is it's not hard to see. You don't need to be an intelligence analyst to see it. You only need to see what is happening before our eyes. And uh rather than chasing down, was it a war plan or was it an attack plan, and trying to bust Pete Hegseth and semantics, understand what these incompetents are doing. I mean, when the history of this time is written, if anybody's gonna be around to write it,
Right.
people are gonna. It's not gonna make sense. It's not gonna make sense, I think, to historians in the future, because they're gonna say, "Well, wait a second, what are we missing here?" And the answer is, you're missing nothing. I'm here from the past to tell you, future historians, you're missing nothing. It really is as stupid as it seems to you 100 years from now. I mean, it just is. Um, and again, not the first time they've used Signal, not the first time they're using it for things that they should not use it for. They put what was it, a 1 week disappearing message? 1 week? You're letting this stuff sit out there for 1 week?
No, they changed it to 4 weeks after, because
Oh,
1 week
4 weeks,
isn't
sorry.
enough. On
Yeah.
top of, you're not supposed to delete this data. If something would have gone wrong, you're supposed to have this information preserved so it could be, I mean, that's another crime to delete attack plans, war plans, whatever plans. You're not supposed to delete government communications. This is supposed to be preserved. So, but they were going to let it sit for 4 weeks, yes. For 1 week first, but then some genius said, 1 week's not enough. We should just keep it for a whole month in case, other intelligence agencies weren't able to manage to grab it. They have a month to figure out how to get into our Signal chat. Not to mention, of course, then bringing in a journalist. I mean, I joked because of how insane it is. Like, we're lucky this was an attack journalist. This is before I knew Witkoff, was in Moscow. But I mean, they could have put anyone, JG. I mean, you by action you could pick any name and throw anyone. You could put a random person on Signal who's going to be sitting there privy to our 72-hour attack plan. I mean,
Well, and the reality is they probably have in the past.
exactly.
And even if they haven't done it, because maybe this is not the kind of screw up that happens every day, now we know what I'm sure hostile foreign intelligence services have known for a long time, which is that they keep these on their personal devices. And
Yep.
All it takes is one, right? Even if everybody else, even if Hegseth and everybody else had signal on their government devices, which by the way, you're not supposed to, as Pete Hegseth's own department has said. But let's assume that they disregard their own guidance and they had it on their government devices. It doesn't matter. All it takes is one. And
Yep.
that one is Steve Witkoff. He's admitted
Yep.
that it was on his personal device.
Yep.
And just the arrogance and the stupidity of admitting that also underscores how these people are not serious people, because that's your excuse, and now you're like, oh, okay, well, I'll wash my hands of this.
The whole
Really?
thing, I mean, we're in a lot of trouble. And this whole thing, it's insane. It's insane, and I really hope that Congress will actually put everything aside. It looks like Wicker said he might, open an investigation. And I mean, something has to be done because this will lead to American deaths. And that's it.
Wicker will open an investigation until Wicker's threatened with a primary, or Wicker's
Yes,
threatened,
exactly.
with a few mean tweets, and Elon Musk's money, and Wicker will cave the
Oh,
way he did on Pete Hegseth. I mean, that's the problem. The problem is that we already know who these people are. They've shown it to us when they
yep,
proved every single one of these nominees Roger Wicker voted for.
yeah.
Every single
Huh.
one. Yep. So
And I mean, we have Elon Musk who's on it. I mean, apparently not Department of Justice or FBI, which is compromised, is going to be investigating this. Elon Musk will. So I
yeah, I
mean,
mean,
this is where we are now.
that's right. We have a businessman whose own lawyers said should not apply for top secret security clearance, which of course I'm sure is out the window now,
Yeah,
investigating this. Why? Like, think about that. Why? Because Elon Musk is good at what?
I don't know. He could give the
What?
information to China. Here are the loopholes that
Yeah.
we're not plugging. So here, this is how you can gain access.
Yep. All right. It is noon. Unfortunately, I have to jump. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Join us
Thank
again
you.
next Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, for another episode of Pax Americana. We are going to send this out on Substack. Olga's going to stick some stuff in
Yep.
the show notes so that you have access to further reading if you want it. And thank you all so very much for joining us this week,
Thank you.
last week, and in the future. See everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.